Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Liz Miller. I'm the CEO of Learn Robotics. And today I'm going to be sharing with you my thoughts through the lens of both an engineer and somebody that has worked at Fortune 50 companies, formerly from Raytheon, how to use all of the technical projects that you do, as well as Hugo, to create a really elevated and professional portfolio. So we're going to kind of break this into a few different sections. I'm going to spend some time talking about the prep work for this portfolio, then getting all of like the technical plumbing done, and then kind of we'll wrap it up with like some time for you to actually take all of this information and implement it, because it's no good to just sit and watch a workshop and not actually apply anything that you've learned. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together, I've got a document and I'm going to launch my screen share, and we're going to go through this together. I want this to be super interactive for you so that you can make the most out of your time. So let's go ahead and get that up here. And we are going to add this resource to a website. We're going to put it on learnrobotics.org/Hugo. So this particular workshop, I've been wanting to share with people for a long time. So currently I work with engineering professionals and I help them get $100,000 to $200,000 plus careers working in the robotics industry. And a lot of what we do is we take all of your technical competencies and we help you specialize. So we help you find the right role in the industry that helps you stand out, that helps you become a micro expert, but also doesn't require you to go back and relearn everything, right? So this workshop kind of aligns with a lot of the work that I do with clients. And I'm super excited to share this with you because there are kind of two big things that I always see with clients that they have challenges with that you can overcome by going through this process and going through the actual workshop and building this out. So if you've been wanting to create a technical portfolio and you've been wanting to leverage the power of Hugo, this is the workshop for you. And just a little bit about me, like I'd mentioned, I had worked in Fortune 50 companies. I'm formerly from Raytheon. I am a robotics engineer by education, and I'm also the CEO of Learn Robotics. And today we're just going to be focusing on how do we take our technical skills. This is going to be catered more towards the technical professional or somebody that wants to become a technical professional and has a lot of project work. But maybe you feel like you have like all these photos and all these projects and all this code and all these GitHub repos, and you're just like, I don't know how to kind of take all this information and show somebody else that I know what I'm doing. So that is exactly what we're going to do. Towards the end, I'm going to come back to this little training that I put together, this little bonus training for you guys. We'll hit that towards the end, so stick around and I'll share more about what that looks like. But now we're just going to hop right into the actual workshop. I want to make sure that you have what you need to actually do this, right? Because when you start a project, oftentimes you don't realize what's involved. The whole process of getting Hugo set up and actually all the plumbing working is about 15 to 20 minutes. But it does require some prior knowledge using command line, using terminal, using markdown, understanding Hugo itself. So we're not really going to cover like how Hugo works. This workshop assumes that you've already worked with it, you've maybe dabbled with it, you kind of understand the structure of the templates and the themes and things like that. It must already be installed on your computer. Make sure you update it. So that's something that as I was prepping for this workshop, I had a copy of Hugo from like a few years ago. You want to make sure that your Hugo version is actually up to date because it could cause some errors with some of the newer themes. And then if you want to actually have your site live and you want to professionalize it, you're going to want to set up a Netlify account, and then you're obviously going to need a GitHub account and make sure that you can access both of those. And then some optional ideas that I have for you is setting up like a domain name. So like if you want to have like a vanity URL to use with your portfolio, you're going to want to either have that available, have the registrar information available so that you can access that. And then you're also going to want to make sure that if you don't have one, you can go to a site like GoDaddy and you can pick up a domain name. I would choose a name though that is professional in nature. I wouldn't, and that's easy to say, easy to read. Just because if you're sharing it like on a LinkedIn, or if you're sharing it on a resume, you're not going to want to be embarrassed by the name that you pick. And then I'm a huge fan of using Cloudflare for DNS. So if you're going to go through this route, I would just set Cloudflare up from the beginning. It takes like 2 seconds, and it's just a good, like from my experience working with websites and managing websites, Cloudflare does an excellent job. So I would just move DNS over to Cloudflare. And then if you want your portfolio to have any like special features, if you want to have analytics, if you want to put a Facebook pixel on there, if you need those features, you can also add those in too. We're not going to really cover the analytics piece, but just know that if that's something that you want to see who's visiting your portfolio, you want to be able to, I don't know why you would want to be able to advertise on your portfolio, but if that's something that you ever wanted to be able to take advantage of, either the data from the pixel or the advertising, then it's always good to set that stuff up at the beginning. So before we hop into the actual building of the portfolio, we want to spend some time planning the portfolio. And so what I mean by planning, and I've kind of put this together like the 3 Ps of technical portfolio building, is you want to kind of know, why are you doing this portfolio? A lot of times, and like I'm guilty of this too as a technical professional, a lot of times we're just like, oh, I want to show the world like this really cool thing that I made. But we don't really have like a theme or a reason or anything really, other than just like, I want to just make this available. And if you can think about like kind of the underlying tone for your portfolio, whether it's just for fun or if it's to enhance your career, you can craft the portfolio and the message of your portfolio around that underlying tone, so that the person looking at it, like if they're a hiring manager, if they're a company, if they're an HR department, if they're a recruiter, if they're more on the professional side of things, they'll pick it up because you've designed it in that way. So then you're also going to want to consider, are you going to want to have a blog? Are you going to want to be, publishing content? And if not, is it just, projects? Are you just going to be highlighting work that you've done? Either it's software, maybe it's in the robotics industry, it could be software, it could be mechanics, it could be 3D printing, it could be a number of different system related projects. And so you want to kind of get an idea of like, what am I going to need for this portfolio? Because if you can identify like, this is a professional portfolio, we're going to be showcasing projects. I'm not going to be blogging right now, but I know that maybe in 6 months I want to be able to blog. Then you can find themes that match Hugo themes that match exactly what you're looking for. And you're not going to have to kind of reinvent the wheel, right? Because choosing a Hugo theme based on like how it looks cool or, the style of it is certainly important. But if it doesn't include some of these characteristics, then you're either going to have to build it yourself, or you're going to have to go back and choose a different theme down the road. And so what we want to do is kind of make this a long-term portfolio that you can just keep expanding on and not have to keep going back and, tweaking behind the scenes. So I'd mentioned a few minutes ago about positioning. So what is like the theme of your portfolio or that overall message that you want people to gain? And what I like to tell people is like, you want to be very consistent with this. So like, if you decide this is going to be your professional portfolio, try not to like put in like the hobby stuff or the just for fun stuff, or maybe stuff that you're using for another purpose, just so that you have kind of a consistent message between your actual technical portfolio, your LinkedIn, and your resume. And that way you as a professional, you have a consistent message. So you're not sharing like, your personal portfolio with personal projects on, a professional platform. That way, when somebody's looking to hire you, if you're using your technical portfolio in that way, it has a more professional feel. So some of the things that I tell my clients to consider as they're going through this process is to figure out, like, who are you? Some of these questions are actually hard to answer. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? What is your professional brand? Like, what do you want people to associate you with? And then what is the goal of the portfolio itself? So like I had mentioned before. And I would spend some time really figuring this out now, because once you kind of have an idea or a vision, or you map this out, you can go and take all those ideas, and then you can go find the right Hugo theme, and you can start filling in a lot of the blanks. And then projects. So this is catered towards technical people. If you don't really have any technical projects, I would hold off on actually doing this and just prepare. So I would do step 1 and prepare for your technical portfolio. And then once you have kind of some projects, a few projects that you want to showcase, then perhaps I would, go forward with doing this. It doesn't really make sense to have a portfolio that is empty, that you don't plan on using, unless you're just using this as a case study to learn how to use Hugo. I suppose you could use this workshop as practice, but we're not really going to get into the details of, like, what is Hugo and why Hugo, and the nuances of using that versus maybe another type of content management system. All right, so I always tell people, as you are doing technical projects, it's a good idea to be videoing, like taking video. It's a good idea to take photos. It's a good idea to document everything that you do. And actually, like, one of my favorite ways to do that is, if you're doing any sort of code, is to use Vimeo Record or like Loom. Those are 2 softwares that I know a lot of people are familiar with. So I'll make a note there. Vimeo Record, or you could use Loom, and just run your screen share, have your microphone on, and just, if you're coding, like, just have it recording while you're coding. You're gonna mess up, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna forget to do something, but you have footage. And then if you ever wanted to consolidate that footage down, you could. And then you also have kind of a time lapse of what you've done, why you've done it in your process to solve a problem. That's kind of a recommendation that I have. And that's something that I've been doing a lot lately, is just everything that I do gets recorded. And then if you're doing something like with a physical project, you're going to want to take photos, and you're going to want to be able to use those photos in the technical portfolio. I think some of the more interesting technical portfolios that I've seen have photos, they have videos. And the reason is, you can't put a photo and a video on your resume, but you can on a technical portfolio. And so if you want to add more context to the work that you've done, then it's just a good idea to have those available and not have to, like, scramble and take pictures for things that you've done months or years ago. Let's go back in. So this is the worksheet that I was sharing with you before. Like, obviously you're going to want to, like, I like to have everything all mapped out, because what you can do is you can take a plan. Once we have all the plumbing set up, then you're just going to take everything from the plan and make it look beautiful in the Hugo site. So personal information, pretty simple. Where you're currently working. You can put an email on there. I always tell clients, like, whatever you put online is going to be online. So if you don't want your email online, then don't put your email online. Same with these profiles. I would, obviously, you want to have, if this is a technical portfolio for a professional thing, then you're going to obviously want to, use your best judgment with what you're sharing in your professional portfolio, and just keep that in mind. Phone numbers and addresses, I try not to use on this. You could put, like, a city, state if you wanted people to know where you're located. I personally choose not to put my address out there. Sometimes I'll even redact the email and the phone number, and then I'll just have, like, a contact form. So if somebody needs to contact me, they can contact me that way. Personal choice here. We're going to come back to this power identity, because this is an activity that I do with my clients, and you can see that I've highlighted it, and with the star, it's so important. But I wanted to kind of give you an overview of the rest of these sections because they're pretty straightforward. So we've got projects. So for every project that you want on your portfolio, I would just go through and kind of map this out. Like what was the name of the project? Like why did you do the project? When did you do it? What was your role if it was a team project? So if this was like, our master's team, you were doing this for graduate school, then you could kind of put all that in there. Any descriptions about this, and these descriptions, I would make them very action oriented versus like, I'll give you an example, like use Python to create an AI system for proofreading. Okay, that's great. You use Python. What I would recommend doing is, instead of focusing on the skill, focus on what the project was, what was the application, and then support the application with the skill. So you could focus on saying like, developed novel AI proofreading tool using Python, leveraging whatever, leveraging the thing, because most people don't really care about skills anymore. And I know some of you might disagree with me on this, but if you think about it, we've got like 7-year-olds that know Python. So Python, or the skill of programming, the skill of doing anything technical, is not as valuable as how do we use the skill. So what are we doing with the skill is more valuable than the skill. And so I would encourage you to think of it that way, because if you're just listing skills, so isn't everybody else. There's like, skills are becoming commoditized, which means everyone has them. They're easy to get to. You can literally learn anything anywhere with the internet. And so I would focus on, if the skill is the commodity, then what are we doing with it? I'll give you another analogy. So like, if you're somebody that is good at building things, and you're focused on listing out all the, you know how to use a hammer, you know how to use a drill, you know how to use power tools, great. Like, a lot of people know how to do that. But if you come in on your portfolio and you just said that you built an apartment complex, or you built a new luxury home like neighborhood, and you built 10 homes, and then you said that you used those skills to do that, that sounds more impressive. And so from a professional standpoint, I always like to lead with the outcome, lead with what we did, lead with the application, and then justify the application with the skill set that allowed us to do it. So that's just something that I've found good luck with myself, and that my clients have found really good luck with as well. So I'd recommend doing that. Challenges, solutions, pretty standard stuff. If you have your code up on GitHub, you could share that. This is a big one here. If you've gotten any like awards or feedback, or if this was a project that you did for potentially a company, or at work, if you got any feedback from anybody on your team or your boss, anybody that might be relevant, I would certainly include that, because those are things that kind of get lost in the weeds, and those are super important. So if you can kind of tell yourself, like, every time I'm doing a project, these are the things that I need, then it's gonna benefit you in the long run, because this is all cumulative, right? So the more and more you do this, the better it gets, the stronger your portfolio looks, the more you're going to want to share it with people. Skills and expertise, we already discussed on that. And then anything else that you think might be relevant, publications and talks. So I have a lot of people that I work with that have patents, and they have, advanced degrees. They've done like TED Talks, things like that. If you've done any of that, especially if you have video around it, like if you've done a presentation and you're giving a talk and it was recorded, I would try to grab those just so that you have them. Certifications and trainings, and then any like affiliations, professional associations, and things like that. And then finally, this last section is just like the colors, like what colors do you want your professional brand to be? What kind of font do you want to use? You can either, kind of go through and look at other websites. I like to use the Hugo theme directory to see kind of like what styles are out there, like what kind of resonates with me. And then like, obviously like any special features or things that you want to add, custom code that you want to add, that's kind of beyond the scope of what we're covering in this workshop. But if you have the skill set to customize the theme to make it look exactly the way you want it, I would say the customization of the theme is secondary to the content and to the message that you're bringing to your portfolio if you're using it to advance your career. Because at the end of the day, most people aren't making the decision based on like what color your portfolio was. They're making the decision based on how well you can communicate the work that you've done. And so this worksheet's kind of designed to help you go through that. And then any other notes that you want to bring. So we're going to move now into the next section here. Hopefully this was straightforward. We've just to recap, we've gone through the plan. We've got our worksheet. We've mapped all of this out. We spent a few minutes mapping this out. I would encourage you to take the time to do this, because if you don't do it over here, you're going to do it over here. You're going to do it over here. And when you see the website built and live, you're going to wonder, oh, what did I do? Like, what projects could I make? And how do I know that? Because I started here and just trying to get all the plumbing done. And now I'm just like, okay, well, what am I going to put in this portfolio now that it's built? You want to start over here. This is where you want to start, because it doesn't make sense to build a portfolio if you don't have things to put in it. All right, so now we're going to move over to the second part of this workshop, where we're going to be setting up the portfolio piping. This is where we're going to get the portfolio up and running. And the reason why I like to do this first is because you don't want to go through, build everything locally, and then have trouble getting it to go live and pushing it to the internet. And so I personally have done that. I've literally built tons of Hugo sites, and then they're all working beautifully locally, but for whatever reason, there's an error, there's an issue, and I can't get it to go live. And then I end up having to redo all that work. So what I like to do is actually get all of this stuff set up first. And this is the process that I use. Make sure the example site looks good, make sure we can go live and update online, and then go back in, then do the customization, then take the worksheet that we just did and actually use it to create the portfolio. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we're going to create the repo. We're going to set up the project. We're going to import the theme. We're going to push to GitHub. We're going to connect and build a Netlify. If you have a domain name, this is where we'll connect it. And then if you want to add in your tracking and your pixels, you could do that. I'll kind of show you where I'd recommend setting that up. And then we obviously want to keep testing. This is something we're going to be testing throughout. We're going to be making sure that everything works every step of the way. And it should take 15 to 30 minutes, and hopefully we can get through this relatively quickly. And then we'll chat a little bit about customization, and then you'll be on your way, okay? So let's go ahead and get that set up. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set up a repo for this. So I'm going to just open up a terminal. I'm going to go to, I just have everything on the desktop in a Hugo folder. And then I'm just going to create the actual repo. We're going to be using a theme. So Hugo themes. And you can choose any of these themes that you like. Ideally, you choose the theme based on the structure of the theme. Yeah, you want to aesthetically, you want it to look good, as well as having the modules that you need so that you don't have to like create them. So like the goal of this workshop isn't to make a custom theme. The goal of this workshop is to leverage your experience to create a powerful, professional, technical portfolio. And so I've decided to use this Hugo liftoff theme. This is what it looks like. And you can see it's got projects where you can kind of go in and you can share all your different projects. It comes up nice and clean. It's got a dark mode, which I think is pretty cool. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna build this. The nice thing about this theme is that they tell you exactly what you need, and you can just use Quick Start, or you can use the actual theme itself. So like if you've never used Hugo before, then you'll be able to go through this. I was just kind of comparing what he wrote with this versus what the standard Hugo methodology. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to go ahead and set this up. So let's go ahead. I also want to go into GitHub and just make a new repository. I'm going to call this portfolio. And we'll just set that up so that we have it. All right, very good. Now let's go ahead and use the wiki. I'm a huge fan of just leveraging documentation to make our lives easier to set this up. So Hugo new site portfolio, cd portfolio, init, and then we're going to add in liftoff. And then you want to make sure that you get all of the requirements. So it says copy over the contents of example site to your project root, or add theme equals Hugo liftoff to your Hugo toml. So let's try that. We'll go into open that up and let's add in theme equals Hugo liftoff. Save that. Let's go ahead and start that development server and make sure we are running. We'll go here and see what we got. Okay, cool. So we've got that basic theme. Let's actually go ahead and do that copy over, because this is just a little basic configuration. So copy over contents of example site to project root, example content and config. So we're going to delete the existing Hugo toml and content directory. So let's do that. So we just updated, this was the file we just updated. You can see it's in that portfolio folder. I'm just going to delete that. And then we're going to go and we're going to remove the content directory. So also you could do it this way, remove content, and that deletes that out. And then you're going to copy config and content within themes, Hugo liftoff, and example site into the root of your project. So you can either do it in terminal or you can just go find those two files. So example Hugo liftoff example site, and then we want to grab config and content and we want to copy those into root, which would be here. And then what we want to do is, if you want to do custom CSS JavaScript, you can add them there. If you don't see a need for adding custom CSS, comment out the custom CSS and custom and param toml. Let's go into params, and it said to comment out those fields. Let's try that. It didn't like that. It didn't like those changes. So let's go ahead and test. Boom. Okay, cool. So now we are up and running. So we've got it built locally. What we need to do is we need to connect it to Netlify, which means we're going to use the GitHub auto build, or I think that's what it's called. And then we're gonna make that connection over. So let's go ahead and do that, and let's keep going. We need to create a git ignore. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to go into here and we're going to go and create git ignore. And then we are going to look at git ignore. And we are going to open that with here. And if you don't know how to access that hidden file on Mac, it is just Shift Command period. So Shift Command period, hide it back. Then we're going to go and add this in. So we're going to do git status, git add, git commit. And then we've got to go grab our URL. So we're going to remote add. And then we're going to get push. And we should start seeing all that come through. Okay, very interesting. And then the nice thing is we've got, you can update the theme. So we've got all of that. And I think we are good to go. I want to just make sure we're not running locally. Close out of that. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go into Netlify. So this is Netlify. You got to create an account, sign up, and then you'll go in and you'll just add a new site. We're going to import from an existing project. We're going to deploy with GitHub. You'll log in with GitHub. I'm going to find that portfolio repo that I just made. Here it is. And this is what we're going to do. Hugo. I'm just going to use the default, and then if we need to change things, then we will. We probably will need to make some adjustments. And what it's going to do is it's going to give you like a random URL to use. And this will be our live site until we adjust the domain. But first things first, we want to make sure that we can get it built and deployed online without any issues. So we've got some style challenges here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back here. I'm going to open this up. We are going to go into these TOML files. We're going to make sure that we don't have anything here. I think we are good with that. Let's go into this Hugo file, overrides, anything in config, TOML. Okay, so we've got our base URL. Let's go ahead and update that. So I'm just going to go into site overview, domain settings. This domain here, we want to change. So let's go ahead and edit the site name. I'm going to call it Liz-portfolio. Let's call it portfolio Liz. Okay, we'll grab that name. We're going to use that inside of here. We've got language, all of that. Let's save that. We've got theme. Hugo liftoff. Okay, so all of that looks good. Let's go ahead and just update that. Update Hugo TOML. Let's see if that fixes it, because sometimes if things aren't exactly the way they need to be, then the site comes in weird. And a lot of the reason why I like setting this up and fixing all this now is because you don't want to have these errors when you've literally just spent like 2 hours making your portfolio. And then you can't get it to work. And then you're like, great, I just spent all that time and my portfolio can't even go live. So I want to, boom. Okay, very cool. So now we've got it working. Let's just make sure that we are good on the actual domain. We are. So we've got now the site, portfolioliz.netlify.app, and you'll be able to go there. Let me just grab this, go incognito, and just make sure everything's good to go. Okay, everything's good to go there. So this is literally all of step 2. Well, like 90% of step 2. We're going to go one step further, and we are going to do an actual custom domain. So if you already have purchased a domain name and you want to add it in, you're going to go into domain settings, and you're going to go into add a domain, and then you're going to add the domain in. So lizrobotics.com. We'll go ahead and we'll verify that. We're going to add it. And then what we need to do is we need to go into DNS. And I'm pretty sure I already added in the DNS for this. I use Cloudflare. You're going to want to go into whoever manages your DNS. And what it'll do is it'll tell you, you don't want to add it into Netlify. You just want to, it's going to give you either the A record or the C name, and you're just going to add that into your DNS. I'm not going to share that here because that's a little bit beyond the scope of this tutorial. I believe I've already done it. Maybe it'll work, maybe not. Yep. Okay, cool. So now we've got our website, our domain name. So if I wanted to share this portfolio, I could just use lizrobotics.com, and you could find my portfolio there. So then let's go back to our little worksheet. What we've done is we've created the repo, we've set up the project, we've imported the theme, we've pushed to GitHub, we've connected and we've built a Netlify, and we've added the domain name. I'm not going to do any tracking or pixels, but you can find that inside of the, I believe it's layouts, maybe. Let's go into themes and see if we can find it. Layouts. So any of the, they're like partials. Yep. Any of the partials is where you're going to want to go. So you've got like your header. I think a lot of times they'll ask you to like put the code, the tracking code, either like in the header or the footer. And you can find where header, the footer, the body. So you can find where you need to place it here and just edit that correct file. And then you should have your Google Analytics or your Facebook pixel or whatever other tracking you want to use. That's kind of the approach that I would do. So now we've got all of this working. We're going to spend a few minutes and just kind of go in and start editing some things. I'm just going to show you a very simple way to start changing this and making it look good. So we'll exit out of these ones that aren't needed. We're going to just go to this is our live site. And we're going to go ahead and just open up. This is what I like to do, is just open up the actual portfolio. And then we've got our content. We've got our index. I believe index has all of the, let's open it in Sublime. I'm really bummed that Atom is no longer supported. Let's go ahead and open this index file, see what we got here. Let's quit that. It's not going to open. So we've got heading here. We've got about. We've got projects. Okay, interesting. So I would imagine here's our headline, and so this is why it's super important to actually take some time to figure out like what you want to be saying here. So I had mentioned earlier in the training this section on power identity. So this is an activity that I do with my clients in the Robotics Career Blueprint. And what we do is we try to get really clear on what it is we do, because a lot of times people will come up to you and they'll ask you, like, what do you do? And we like I would say most people have no clue how to answer that, and like myself included, I'm oftentimes wondering like, oh, well, how do I answer that question? And so if you can kind of think of it in this particular way, I like to use analogies. The way I would kind of go about answering this question is I would use this template or an analogy of like, X, well, what we do is Y, and here's the example. So an example for myself, like if somebody asked me about my experience at Raytheon, like what did you do at Raytheon or what do you do? At the time, this is kind of the example that I would use. I would say something along the lines of like, those airplanes or those new airplanes that Delta and other airlines have just purchased. Well, some of the newer Airbus models use the engines that I was part of testing and bringing to market. So for example, those new Airbus A320s, that model is set to use the engine our company makes. So it's like super easy to understand. Even a non-technical person can understand it because you're using an analogy that relates what you do to what you know and like why that matters. So you can kind of use this power identity and leverage this information to kind of start to build the message around your technical portfolio. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of use this theme for my portfolio, and we're going to start editing some of this. So we just found where to edit it. It's in this index. Jumpstart your personal blog. So I'm just going to write former Raytheon engineer with working and you can kind of come up with some of these headlines. Another thing that I'll use quite a bit is ChatGPT. So I'll come up with some different phrasing. I'll really spend some time mapping this out. And then what I'll do is I'll use ChatGPT to come up with some different variants or some different phrases for how, like how could I say this? How could I simplify this? A lot of times technical people were like too complicated for the average person to understand. And so we want to take a step back and explain what we do in a way that we don't have to sit here, with a dictionary and try to look up like, well, what does that actually mean? So what I might do for this portfolio, and this is just an example for editing, as I might just say like, welcome to my technical portfolio, where I show you all of my engineering projects. Okay. And then you can adjust this for SEO, and I definitely would. And engineer and entrepreneur. Okay. Okay, I'll do something like that. And then I might put on the CTA, which are these buttons. I might put, instead of about, I might view more. Maybe I would put, instead of projects, I might put portfolio or my work. And then we've got recent posts. We've got, maybe I change this to technical portfolio. And I mean, you can kind of name this whatever you want. I'm just showing you kind of like how you could go about making these edits. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and you could add the individual file. I'm just being lazy. And we have that get ignore, so that should be helpful. Update index. Okay, and so what we want to do is we just want to make sure that Netlify is seeing these pushes. So we should be seeing, okay, perfect, that it's just going to deploy this. Hopefully we found the right file. Ideally, you check this locally, make sure you have the right file. I skipped that step. We've got this, this index file. We shall see if that was the right one, and then we'll just go through this process. There we go. Okay, cool. So these buttons are actually tied to a button name, so we don't want to change the names of those. So that was about, and that was projects, I'm pretty sure. So we'll go back and fix that. And then what we need to do now is we need to figure out, okay, how do we adjust, like example site, how do we adjust, you know, so here let's go into this other index. So we've got about like, hi, my name is Hugo. Customized links. I want to try to find like contact posts, projects, and you can kind of see inside of here we've got all these different files. Where is, and it might be in the Hugo config file that we were playing with earlier. Like here's the menus. I want to go in and actually update that. So let's go in here. So we've got work. So you can see we've got this work one, and then we've got these sub menus. You want to kind of adjust that to what you're working with. So let's go ahead and make that quick change. So we've got top level, projects, writing. So maybe what I want to do is just have work be projects. Projects, and then we've got, maybe we get rid of this parent. So actually I might just get rid of this entirely and just have projects be the top level. There is no parent. And then we've got about, and then we've got explore, project type, I don't care about any of that. Tags, I don't care about any of that. So we'll delete all that. Subsection posts, I might just call this log. And then we've got right that. I got content, contact. Let's do that as well. Let's just check this localhost and make sure, because I've got some kind of red stuff here going on. So let's check localhost to make sure we're good before we push it. Okay, so we got projects, about, contact, blog. So you can kind of see this process. I want to change the site name. So let's quickly do that. And then you can kind of see, like, you can kind of see this come together now. So now you're just going to take basically your worksheet, your power identity, your marketing, your messaging, your technical projects, all of your videos. You've got this skeleton of the portfolio. You've got a domain name that has this beautiful, clean looking professional appearance. And now it's just getting the content in there. So that's stuff that you can do certainly by yourself. I'm just going to see if we can fix the little header, just for style reasons. So let's go back to our, let's go back to this TOML file here and see if we can find the name of this. I would imagine sample site. Okay, so let's call this, instead of example site, let's call this Liz's portfolio, or maybe let's call this Liz Miller. Let's check that. Okay, so now we've got it on locally, so we've fixed it. So I've got my name, I've got projects. We can go like in dark mode if we want. Ideally, we would adjust this photo. We'd adjust all of these icons. I believe it's in that file right there. So let's find like Twitter, social. Let's see. Have any of those URLs in here? It might be in the hero setting here. Default image, redirects. Yeah, so they've split it out. So what I would encourage you to do, the next step for updating content would be to just go into, let's go back to the wiki. And then you can go content and front matter, and it's going to tell you where the posts and projects are located, where the front matter is located, title, SEO, description, and you can do all of that. So the goal of today's workshop was to really get you thinking more about how can you position the work that you do? How can you take all of your technical skills, leverage the power of Hugo and getting set up in 15 to 20 minutes with a professional portfolio and like that process? Because honestly, I think of all the steps, this is the hardest part, is just getting it to go live. And then once you're live, you can just sit here and you can keep updating it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to add everything that we just did. Update with personal info. And then you can spend some time. So it's literally as simple as this. You send the push over, and then probably within the next couple minutes or so, we're going to see that this website has been updated. So what I'd like to do is invite you to join me. I have a few spots open. We open periodically where I work directly with engineers who want to specialize in the robotics industry. I've put together a special 12-minute training on how we tailor elite robotics careers with $130,000 to $400,000 a year salaries. And if you have a strong mechanical, electrical, or software background and you want to get a specialty working in the robotics industry, either in robotics, automation, AI, companies like Raytheon, like Fortune 50 companies, like some of these, Series E startups, they're looking for highly competent people that want to get to the next level, that want to have a specialty. And so we provide training and professional development for engineers to get better at explaining what they do and then also monetizing that skill set. So if you are interested, I have put together some training for you. You can take it. It's 12 minutes. It walks you through exactly the process that we use with our clients. If you like kind of the work that we did in this workshop, this is kind of how we set up the program, and I work directly with clients. Part of the biggest challenge with a workshop like this is you can go ahead and you can do it, but you're not going to get feedback. You're not going to get advice. You're not going to get any sort of personalization. It's kind of up to you to figure out if what you're doing is going to put you closer to your goal or not. So we provide that community and that support and the mentorship with myself and other robotics experts in the industry to help you, maximize your time and make more progress. So we have that open for you. You can check that out here. And then we also have our website here, learnrobotics.org/Hugo, where you can find this workbook, the recording, the tutorials, the links to everything that we used in this workshop. So that's all I have for you right now. We'll go ahead and we'll check this site, make sure it updated. You can see we're live now. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day. Please give this a whirl. If you enjoyed this presentation, you can find all of the step-by-step and the walkthrough and the resources on learnrobotics.org/Hugo. And I hope you have an awesome rest of your conference, and I'll be seeing you soon.